Hi, I'm Nick Palmisano, and this is the Bad News Network. Katy Perry is in hot water this week after she recently released a pair of shoes that resembles blackface. Sources close to Katy said that these shoes were part of an entire lineup of shoes of different colors with many faces and were never intended to be offensive. Nevertheless, in order to be respectful and sensitive, she is pulling the line of shoes. When reached for comment, Katy Perry had this to say: "My bad, this was part of my Virginia line." Pete Hegseth, a man once under consideration to run the VA, announced on Fox and Friends this week that he doesn't believe in washing his hands. The Princeton and Harvard grad went on to say that because he can't see germs, he doesn't believe they exist. In unrelated news, Pete Hegseth is a devout Christian. Polar bears have invaded and taken over a town in Russia this week. This 50 polar bear assault on the small Russian settlement Bulyshia Guba has caused the town folk to hide away in their homes. Basically everyone in this town, located 1,200 miles northeast of Moscow, is freaking out. And they should be. Polar bears are our enemies. They are the only creature on the planet that actively hunts man. And they're enormous. And they look super cute. Until they bite you. And those black, lifeless eyes roll over white. The ocean turns red, and despite all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and just rip you to pieces. Now that's sharks. But still, in Houston, 2 men smoking pot in an abandoned house found a caged tiger in a garage. After convincing themselves that the tiger was real, they immediately called the police. Upon arriving at the scene and seeing the tiger, the police still considered arresting the 2 men. However, the tiger stood up and went to bat for them, saying, "They're great!" The national debt topped $22 trillion this month, but nobody from either party gives a shit, so we've got that going for us, which is nice. Notorious drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Le Tigre Biblioteca Guzman was found guilty on all counts this week, ending a multi-year attempt to bring him to justice. A key element to the conviction was footage of a tunnel that El Chapo built from Douglas, Arizona to Agua Prieta, Mexico. The tunnel, which was used to move over a ton of cocaine, was almost 6 feet in diameter and featured both a rail system and hydraulics that lifted a pool table while simultaneously raising the drugs into Douglas, Arizona. As an aside, that's pretty rad. El Chapo also used a pickled jalapeno business that would basically consist of shipments that were 99% jalapeno and 1% cocaine, to move over 25 tons of coke into the United States over the years through legal ports of entry. In unrelated news, the President of the United States signed a bill that would keep the government open and then will declare a state of emergency in order to build a fence along our southern border to keep drugs out.
But didn't you say El Chapo used hydraulics to move coke through a quarter-mile tunnel?
Shh.
No, but...
Totally different thing.
Is it?
The tunnel will work, Matt.
You mean the wall?
Yeah, that's what I said. Anyway, this national state of emergency is going to result in a bloodbath of politics and courtrooms that is absolutely going to set the stage for the 2020 election. Speaking of 2020, the election buildup is pretty weird so far. On the Democrat side, everyone is running. Literally everyone. If they're of legal age, have a pulse, and are a registered Democrat, they are running against President Trump. No clear winner has emerged yet, and it'll be quasi-interesting to see who ends up on top. On the independent side, former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz is running, and the Democrats are hammering him pretty much 24/7. My favorite argument so far is the people that hate him because they believe he didn't actually pull himself up by his own bootstraps, as he claims. This is a man that grew up in the projects, worked his ass off, and became a billionaire of his own accord. The argument that they are making is that because he grew up in the projects, he was actually subsidized by the government, and therefore the government is the reason he was successful and not his own hard work. I know it's hot right now, but is anyone else getting tired of losers trying to diminish the accomplishments of other people just so they feel better about themselves for being losers? Congressman Omar posted some pretty offensive and anti-Semitic things on Twitter this week. Republicans quickly smashed her for it and called for her to resign or at least step down from some of her committees. Democrats kind of did, but then quickly said, "But Steve King." Then Republicans slammed Governor Northam again, and then Democrats countered with, "But Trump." I, for one, am just happy that both parties have committed to the age-old maxim that bigotry and racism are completely okay as long as you're in our party and you kind of pretend that you're sorry. Captain Zoey, Knick, the first female pilot to head the F-16 Viper demonstration team, was relieved of duty this week. It's extremely odd for someone to be relieved of command after only 2 weeks. The official reason given was a lack of confidence in her command ability. However, everyone that knows absolutely nothing about the situation is pretty convinced she banged someone she wasn't supposed to bang. In jihadi news this week, Shamima Begum, the teen that ran away from the UK when she was 15, now wants to come back because she's pregnant and is afraid about the safety of her unborn child. She then stated she's not sorry she joined ISIS. Official British policy about how to handle this situation is a little bit gray. However, unofficial British policy goes something like, "F*** off, you bloody tot!" This week, Bill Cosby stated that he's absolutely loving prison life, and he credits Navy life to preparing him for it. The jokes just write themselves, people. They just write themselves. The Grammys happened this week. After the event, Cardi B thanked Tom Petty for sending her flowers. Tom Petty died in 2017. That is some Brigade S3 level planning, Mr. Petty. I salute you. A Home Depot in Wichita, Kansas had an explosive situation this week when the police were forced to respond to a bomb threat. It turns out there was a little bit of a misunderstanding as a couple of dudes that were using the urinals saw a dude rush past them into a stall and say, "Y'all better get out of here, I'm fixing to blow this place up!" Bomb Squad Officer Corporal Jones had this to say about the incendiary situation. The worst part about it was, he didn't even run the bathroom fan. And finally, in the most Florida story of the week, Christian Nichols was arrested for having sex with a dog while dressed as a Siberian Husky. Authorities were alerted to the situation when Nichols filmed the acts and loaded them up to the internet. Officer Brian Dunlop had this to say about the situation. There are some things you just don't need to see in 4K. Anyway, I'm going to the bar right now to knock back a couple shots. Hair of the dog, if you will. And with that, I'm Nick Palmisano, and this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and the New England Patriots remain world champions.